bitches. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, bitches.
That was my phone.
That was your phone, yeah. So, it's Monday. We had said on Friday that we would be announcing a bunch of stuff today, but it does not seem like the right thing to do in the current world situation. So we're going to table that stuff until later on. We're a band that has political songs, political leanings. We're a couple of people who pride ourselves on being politically engaged. We've made an effort to not really get into that on this show. We've made an effort to make this show more frivolous because it's first thing in the morning and it's 15 minutes. But this isn't really a time for our frivolity.
Yeah, I mean, everything that's been going on, especially this weekend, the way that people are out protesting and just the gravity of the situation makes everything else feel frivolous. So it didn't feel like the right time to continue to be frivolous. And the things that we have planned will still happen, but it felt like, us sitting here and talking about what we're doing was in a way kind of not avoiding, but it would have been, insensitive and short-sighted of us, so, and it's hard to know what the right thing to say is and how to address everything, because it's something that I struggle with. I know people are out there protesting, and all of the protests are justified, but it's scary. I worry because I know people are out there and I know that it's dangerous, but I also know that it's worth it. It's worth the risk. It's worth the struggle. It's worth the effort. But I also realize we're still in the grips of a global pandemic. I really worry that just all of these things combined are really difficult. They're really difficult for all of us to fully understand the depth of the situation. There is a problem with racism in this country, in a lot of countries, and it's upsetting to me that the only way that we are able to address it and draw attention to it is by protesting innocent people being murdered by the police. It's incredible to me that this is the only way that we can not even talk about it, that we can start to engage with it in a way that a majority of people recognize. And I feel like it's not even a majority. There are plenty of people who aren't paying attention to this. The president doesn't care. There's absolutely no response from the White House at all this weekend.
Well, he turned the lights off, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
He turned the lights off and pretended he wasn't home because there were people outside the White House. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing that I think we as white people have to reckon with, is having difficult conversations with people in our lives.
Yeah.
Where we are, there aren't any protests. So we're not in a position to be joining those. And also, not everybody is able to join protests. I mean, I am not a citizen. I am documented, but I'm not a citizen. And if I were to be arrested, that would pretty much put an end to any options for me in terms of staying here. at a certain point, being married to an American wouldn't save me.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be very careful about putting myself in a position where that might happen. If I was in London, I would absolutely be on the streets. So when you're not able to participate in that way, there are a lot of other things that you can do. I mean, the easiest, lowest effort, if you are a person of means, is to donate to organizations that can help,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that I do. And the lowest physical effort, highest mental effort is to have conversations with people in your life who don't understand the severity of the situation. It shouldn't be on Black people to have those conversations.
Yeah, and they're not easy conversations to have, and I have had them with members of my family, and they have been really difficult, and they have been really frustrating, and it is, but it's necessary, and I don't know that I won, but it's not necessarily about winning the conversation.
And I think if you have a conversation and it really sucks and you don't feel like you got anywhere, try again. Just to try a different tack. Give it a few days, let it die down, try a different approach. I don't think just saying, well, I tried talking to that person and they're still a fucking asshole is like the best move. And also, like, give people space to think about what you discussed.
Right.
Is the other thing. Like, people are very reactionary if they're being called out on their bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
So the chances are, if it's a person who really has a lot of bullshit in this area, they're not going to take it well if you have that conversation. But they might think about it afterwards if you're a person that they care about.
Yeah. And there are also plenty of people who just don't understand, who don't realize that their behaviors or that the things that they think they say as just casual jokes, the casual racism that runs through just general life is something that I think a lot of people of a certain generation just are not aware of, don't fully understand that it is part of a larger system. It is part of a larger system of institutional racism. It's part of a larger system that was built to support them and not anybody else, and actively exclude other people. I think they just don't, those dots have never been connected. So sometimes, it may be easy to just brush it off and be like, that they just don't get it. They're from a different time. Maybe those people would not respond, combatively or defensively. It is an opportunity to maybe connect those dots for people who are receptive and who you can, if you have faith in those people that, they would respect you enough to listen, it's worth having that conversation to connect those dots for them in a way that doesn't necessarily make people feel like they've just been an asshole their whole lives because they haven't made those connections. But it is really hard. It is really hard, but it is on us. It is on us to start those conversations and to do what we can do. If you can't protest, donate. If you can't donate, have conversations with people. If you have a platform in a way like we do, maybe we're just here on Instagram to, 5 or 6 people in the morning, but this felt more important than, talking about any other thing that we have going on right now, because what is going on right now is more important,
Yeah, and I think, I hope that that one of the good things about the internet is that people are able to see the wider world and get a bigger context. I think there's a lot of issues around people not understanding the problem is that it's not in front of them. Mm-hmm. And that sounds ridiculous, but we're in upstate New York. It's not the most racially diverse part of America. It's a little racially diverse. I'm sure there are areas that are worse. But yesterday we were driving somewhere and there was an accident, so traffic was diverted. It was diverted down a road we'd never been down before that kind of snaked its way through a hillside, basically, and then eventually we found our way back to the highway. That road, I don't even know if that was a town. Like there was a
Oh,
bunch of
it
houses
was.
on it, but there was no center to it. There was no store. It was just a bunch of houses. And we drove through a patch where like they were flying Trump flags everywhere. Like a couple of houses had like multiple Trump flags.
Yeah.
But they were also all sitting out on their porches watching cars go by. Like it was an event that more than one car an hour was driving down their road. So I think that I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to articulate. I mean, I remember when growing up, I grew up on the south coast of England, and I grew up in a village, and I went to high school in the nearest town, which is still not a big town. And I remember having conversations with friends of mine when I was like 16, where we were just like hanging out. And a good friend of mine used the N-word in jest, not speaking about anyone in particular, but just threw it out there. And I was like, hey, that's not cool. You don't get to say that word. Like, I mean, this was like, where are we? Late 90s. And the response was, it doesn't matter, there's no black people here right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that person would be horrified by herself looking back at that. But she was a dumb fucking kid in the middle of nowhere. And she thought it was fine because she wasn't saying it to anyone. And I guess on the whole scale of racism, maybe that's a little bit lower down on the level, but I think there's a real issue with that, with people for some reason have trouble empathizing with things they don't see right in front of them.
Well, and the thing about like the internet, the capital I or whatever, and that like small section of wherever we were that we drove through yesterday, it's like it makes it so easy to be both totally isolated but feel like you know everything. Yeah. Like you are still connected to everything when you're really only being fed the things that already align with the small frame of reference that you have in your everyday life. And I really struggle with how to like effectively use the internet and social media to like broadcast what I believe in and what I care about. For me, it just doesn't feel right to me. Like I don't, and people have tagged me to share things and pass things along, and I haven't done it. And it's not because I don't care. It's just because that is not how I feel like is how I can contribute. I don't feel like I can contribute to the conversation by reposting something on my Instagram feed. I feel like I can contribute to the conversation in my job, and in my job, a lot of people know I like work for Getty Images. I've been helping the news team. I've been helping the social media team and having conversations about whether it's safe to post images from protests for the sake of the protesters, for the sake of the photographers. What is our responsibility to cover this? I feel like I stay engaged by staying engaged and staying informed, and that's not something I feel like I can fully broadcast by posting it on Instagram, and other people do a better job of it. It's just, I struggle with that. And, does it seem like I'm burying my head in the sand because I'm not putting everything that I think on blast? I don't know, but I think
it's hard to tell. I mean, Instagram in particular has changed so much about how people interact with the world, and think back to Ferguson. I don't feel like when that was happening, I was seeing so much on Instagram. I guess Instagram stories didn't exist.
Yeah, they didn't. I mean,
I think that's part of it too, is that like short thing, because it's such a fine line as well between wanting to elevate important messages and just at some point appearing performative.
yeah,
And everybody is trying. I want to believe everybody's trying to do their best. I don't want to put anyone on blast for that, but there are things that I've seen my friends do that make me feel uncomfortable. There was one thing that I saw a couple of people do, which was like, I have donated X amount of money to whether it's the George Floyd Family Fund or one of the community bail funds. And if you also do it and send me a screenshot of it, I'll match you. And I don't think there's anything less than good intentions in that. But my reaction to that personally is just give them as much money as you can physically afford to do. If you can afford to match people, then you could have afforded to give them more money in the first place. I don't know what you're adding.
mm-hmm.
That, to me, and I don't believe there's malice to it, and I don't believe that it's intentionally self-aggrandizing, but you're putting yourself weirdly in the middle of it
Yeah,
and turning it into a show.
right.
And I think,
Yeah, there's a very strange like level of opportunism there or something that just seems
also
so
just
close.
this feeling that like donating isn't enough if people don't know that you did it.
Mhm.
That's not what it's about. If you gave everything that you possibly could to an organization, you did great.
Yeah,
You don't need to, you know what I mean?
yeah. No,
I don't know if I'm
I
being mean-spirited.
well, this is the thing, and this is why these are the difficult conversations that we need to have, and like we've talked about it just together, and it's a lot to make sense of, and it's a lot to figure out what what is the right thing to do. And of course it's great if you can donate, that's amazing. Do you need to, if you want to like share with people that there is a place you can donate, that's totally fine.
That is great, and I have definitely found out about some additional organizations by people doing that.
Right.
I think that there's a difference between going, hey, here's some cool
Right.
places
Here's some
I just
places
found out
you can
about.
donate to.
Yeah, versus here's a screenshot of exactly how much money I sent them.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot. It's complicated. This has been a long and somewhat heavy show today, but we felt like it was important. We felt like it was worth it. We know that we're not perfect, but we are trying. We recognize our privilege and our place in this. We want to talk, but we also want to listen. We want to be here.
Yeah, I mean, if we've said anything today that like you just think you're an asshole.
Yeah, if we're
just
off the mark,
message us and have a
so.
conversation about it.
Yeah. Because we are here to learn and to listen and to contribute in ways that feel appropriate and relevant and useful.
Yeah, a lot of the politics of this ban has been around reproductive justice and LGBTQ issues, which are things that it's easier for us to place ourselves in.
Right.
And this particular issue is difficult for obvious reasons, in that we want to be of service. We don't want to be taking space away from people more directly affected.
Right.
And that's a balance. And it's also, it's not something that is particular to America, but the conversation in America is so layered, has so much history attached to it, and is culturally something that I had a lot of initial, not problems, but it was a lot as a newcomer to this country to get my head around. I mean, you know, I come from England. Obviously, England has its own long, terrible history. It really does, and we continue to reckon with it. Do we reckon with it well? Probably not. I'd say this government probably does at least well of arguably any government. But it's so much more, it feels so much more current, and it feels so much more of an emergency here.
Yeah.
And it has done the entire 8 years that I've lived here. And it's tied in with so many other things. It's tied in with the huge disparities in income in this country. And again, this is also the same in my own country. You know, there are plenty of people of color who died in police custody in the UK, nowhere near the numbers here. And a large part of that is because our cops don't have guns.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them don't. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot. It's a lot to sort through, and we're only scratching the surface. But I have to start working soon, so we need to play this song.
Okay.
But we did feel like this was more important. It was more important for us to have a not frivolous conversation today. We thought that it was our responsibility to do that. So
see what this conversation.
So we appreciate you listening. If you listened, talk to us. We're here. And everybody stay safe out there. Keep the conversation going. Keep talking. Keep doing what you're able to do in a way that feels safe and useful and productive to you.
And look out for each other. If you're out there in a protest, if at all possible, have a buddy you can check in with. If not, have an emergency contact. Write their number on your arm in case you lose your phone or your phone is confiscated or whatever. Have somebody who can call a lawyer for you if you need to, or get bail for you if you need them to. It's really important. All right.
Okay.
This is a song of ours. You can buy it or stream it, or you can put that money somewhere better. We don't need the money. Yeah. Ready?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4. Mass shootings and Donald Trump. Mass shootings and Donald Trump. Make sure you want to move to America. Make sure you want to move to America. Mass shootings and Donald Trump. Mass shootings and Donald Trump. Make sure you want to move to America. Make sure you want to move to America. And I heard they shoot on sight. If you walk in the wrong bathroom, no, that doesn't sound quite right. But I heard it on the TV, heard it on the TV, heard it on the TV. So it must be true. So it must be true. Mass shootings and Donald Trump. Mass shootings and Donald Trump. Make sure you want to move to America. Make sure you want to move to America. Mass shootings and Donald Trump. Mass shootings and Donald Trump. Make sure you want to move to America. Make sure you want to move to America. And I heard you have no right to expect basic health care. No, that doesn't sound quite right. But I heard it on the TV, heard it on the TV, heard it on the TV. So it must be true. So it must be true. Mass shootings and Donald Trump. Mass shootings and Donald Trump. Are you sure you want to move to America? Are you sure you want to move to America? Mass shootings and Donald Trump. Mass shootings and Donald Trump. Are you sure you want to move to America? Are you sure you want to move to America? All right, everyone.
We'll see you on Wednesday.
Yeah, stay safe out there.